What's up, bikers? Episode 193. And today we have Shredly. If you're not familiar with them, they are a woman's brand of mountain bike, or I guess you could just say cycling apparel. Anyways, before we get started, I want to talk real quick about a couple of things. First of all, I have a channel sponsor, which is Ari Bikes. And if you're not familiar with them, they used to be called Fazari, and they've been so kind to be part of the biker team and go ahead and sponsor me this year with some bikes. So super stoked about that. And just here, or coming up here soon, I should be having one of the e-bikes that they sell, and I'm planning on getting the Timp Peak. So if you're not familiar with the Timp Peak, it's their kind of 170 full e-bike, and it's basically the same as the LaSalle Peak that I've been riding, except for a motor that's stronger than me. So anyways, I'm super stoked about that. If you're thinking about looking at getting a new e-bike, they if this thing rides anything like my LaSalle does, it's going to be super fun. Actually, I actually have ridden this. I did this on a demo day, rode this bike on a demo day up in Everstoke, and wow, the power between this and the lightweight one is huge. So if you're thinking about trying one, you can always hit up Ari. They have a 30-day money back guarantee. So you can ride it on your local trails, and if you don't like it, send it back to them. They'll give you your money back. Aside from that, Tasco MTB has been a long time supporter of the channel and recent sponsor, and they have the Ridgeline gloves, which has this super fun kind of Hawaiian pattern on it. And honestly, I really like these things. This is one of those ones that you look at online, you're like, I don't know, but you see them in person, you're like, man, those things are dope. So you can use code biker B1KER, save yourself a little bit of money over there. And if you don't think you need some new gloves, maybe head over to Cali and check out maybe a new helmet. The OF Invader is kind of like their Invader XC full face helmet, but the OF has no chin bar on it, so it's kind of that full coverage on the backside of your head. And they have these pretty crazy color drops going on. This thing has like a lime green top and a white back, and it's looking pretty fun. Anyways, $225 for that on the retail side, but if you use code B1Cali30, you'll save 30%. Figure that out. It's about $60, $70 cheaper than that. I'm not doing the math off on the fly right now, so swing by Cali. If you're thinking about any helmet for that matter, they have a crash replacement plan that I think is, pretty much stand up, pretty much the only one that I know of. You crash it and you break it, you send it back to them, and they send you a new one. So that's pretty rad. Swing by CaliProtectives.com, and like I said, code B1Cali30. So let's go ahead and move on. We'll bring Ashley on, and let's talk about what she's doing over there. Hey, Ashley, how's it going?
Hey, good, Robert. How are you?
Not bad, man. Every week is one of those weeks lately where I'm like, next week's going to be chill. And then I get into next week and it's not.
Not this time of year. I don't feel like that's possible.
Yeah. Are you busy doing a lot of fests and stuff?
Yeah, so we've had a busy event schedule this year, and I don't go to all of them, but our team in general, um, is kind of in the thick of it in the home stretch of events. I feel like everything wraps up in October, so we're event heavy. But this is my pre-production cycle. I'm our designer as well, so this is a busy time of year for me with design and pre-production. So when we're slow in one way, we're busy in another way. So really, I think the same thing as you, like. Wait, when does it get slow? It doesn't.
Yeah, I just keep lying to myself every Friday. I'm like, next week, man, it's gonna be so nice, and then it's not.
My dream is like get ahead. How can I get ahead this week so next week isn't so gnarly? And I know it's never going to be slow, but like, how can I schedule or manage things so that it feels like there's a little bit of a normalcy or break?
So when I was writing the show notes, and I think I said something similar to you when we were talking at Sea Otter, I really feel like the women's mountain biking community is really underserved. And I felt that way for a long time. And your product is something that I've seen at, the different events over the years. And that I'm like, man, we need more of this. Mm-hmm. So I believe it was 2012 when you started. Mm-hmm. What intrigued you? You were just like, I'm tired of wearing men's shorts. I need to make something better.
Well, if you think women's is still underserved, you have to go back 10 years and remember what it was like then, because it was not non-existent. We have to give credit where credit is due to the brands that were serving women, but it was way less.
Hmm.
And the idea of a brand just for women in mountain bike was not there yet. So that's
Yeah.
where we were kind of the first to come to market with product that was specifically for women. And the by women concept was also, I mean, that's kind of like buzzword now, and it's definitely more common now, but it was not the case back then. So what inspired me was I went to school for fashion design,
Hmm.
but I also got a degree in marketing. So I was actually in real estate marketing. But I'd grown up, an avid rider, but was not a competitive rider by any means, very recreational. And my girlfriends and I were really into riding, and we just were kind of all lamenting about the same things, where we couldn't find a short that was all the things. It wasn't comfortable, it wasn't cute or stylish, and it either like ticked one of those boxes, but not all of them. And so
Right.
we were
It was
truly,
like, here's three options. You only get to pick
yeah,
two. Yeah.
exactly. Like, it can be maybe kind of cute, but the fabric is not comfortable, or
Yeah. Yeah.
it looks cute, but the fit's not right. And so we really kind of just pieced together, kind of for fun on a ride, like what would the perfect short be? And
Hmm.
since I had this apparel background, it like stuck with me. I didn't have the idea I wanted to start this company, but based on this conversation, it kind of stuck with me, and I started to see cute shorts like as I was falling asleep, or I'd see a cute pillow and be like, well, why can't we have cute shorts that, are the pattern on that pillow. So the
Yeah.
idea just stuck with me. And I really still didn't even know, like, do I want to start a company, or do I just have this idea? And
Hmm.
so I just kind of went with the idea of like, okay, if I want to make shorts, I'm sure other people will want them. If I'm going to sell them, I need to come up with a brand name. And then it just snowballed. I had no experience with entrepreneurship or starting a business, starting a brand. Um, and I hadn't even worked in the apparel industry in a professional capacity. I just had the education and an internship behind it.
Hmm.
But I had the marketing experience. And then just people wanted the product. And I truly believe that if there's something like that, there's less of that now than there used to be. But if there's something like that that somebody else hasn't done and you're surprised they haven't done it, it's kind of amazing how everything just rallies behind you, whether it's your community, or it's kind of just putting the idea out there, and then the universe helps you piece the
Hmm.
pieces together if you're willing to kind of be the conduit. And that's how I feel my experience was.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said that you were a longtime rider. Where do you call home?
So I don't live there now, but I grew up in Colorado, in
Hmm.
Carbondale, Colorado. So I grew up biking, like much to my chagrin. I didn't actually love it. My family did it together,
Yeah, they
and
just made you.
they kind of made me. And part of actually what I didn't like about it was the clothes. Like, I was a girly girl, but played outside and played in the dirt, rode bikes with my brother and his friends, and we made trails and jumps and obstacle courses and stuff. So I
Hmm.
loved to do all of that. But I was like painted nails, crimped hair, wore dresses while doing it. And the apparel didn't excite me. So I've had dads come up to me now and say, how do I get my daughter into biking? And I'm like, make her excited about something besides the bike, because if the bike doesn't excite her, there's other things.
Yeah.
Like sparkly streamers. We all remember those as kids. Like, what are all the other things you
Yeah.
can do that make biking itself more exciting? And for me, that transcends all ages. Like,
Right.
little girls get excited about wearing their unicorn shorts, but women get excited about wearing their unicorn shorts as well. And this like emotional attachment to just the experience of being excited to get dressed transcends all ages. And I feel like that's what we've really been able to capture, and that's what we've
Yeah.
brought to the market.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think that it's only been over the last few years that, and obviously you've been doing longer than this, so I'm not lumping you then into this, but I think that like cycling apparel for some reason has this more like functional design instead of like actually embracing maybe like the community's like wants and needs for something fun, you know?
Yeah. And I think historically that's what it's always been. I mean, I think that function came before fashion. And what we know is that you don't have to sacrifice function for
Yeah.
fashion. And I think there's some of that also just um, what we have the luxury of is that we are a small brand, and the bottom line comes down to me. So I can
Right.
make the decision for a lot of things that might not make sense for a bigger brand like our SKU count. We're
Hmm.
very SKU heavy because we have a wide size range. We've got lots of colorways, and that doesn't work for every business model, but that is our model. So we've made it
Yeah.
work in that way. And I think that when you don't have the luxury of that, you have to prioritize what's most important. And I think function has always won out. But I
Yeah.
think that there's a shift in it just the way that consumers are shopping, because I get this request from men a lot that they feel like they don't have a ton of fun options.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because when you look at sales data, black just always sells. It's
Yeah.
usually the best seller. It's the most popular. It's versatile. But what we know is that black sells with our loudest, brightest colorway. And
Yeah.
so it's these completely ends of the spectrum that I feel like if you have to pare it down and you have to have one offering, you're going to pick the easiest one. So we've just been able to build our business around something that is the exact opposite of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, like even as a man, it's like, well, why I would always think to myself, like, why do I only have the option of 4 different color, like wicking t-shirts that say nothing on it, but maybe the company's logo?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but I could go to like a surf shop and, there's like a million different like tees that have like fun designs on it. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, granted, they're not wearing them surfing, but it's like, why do I have to wear just some plain t-shirt when I go riding?
Right.
Whenever there's like, I mean, there's options there, it's like,
Yeah.
just make it.
I know it's really funny because I think that there's like a culture, like surf culture or Vans. Like they created a whole brand around the culture, or skate, like
Yeah.
Vans and skate. The whole culture was like loud and fun and living outside of the rules. And I feel like historically bike, even though it's super fun, it's kind of wild sometimes, there's great community behind it. It has like the very streamlined culture, except for the
Yeah.
people like I know when I started, I had a great group of friends that were like really rowdy. They made their own jerseys by cutting off flannel shirts and putting mesh panels in the side. And it's kind of like the fad right now of riding in denim. Like they
Yeah.
were rebelling. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that there's still a lot of I want to look the part and I want to look like a biker, and I want that from the beginning. But what we've tapped into is like I want it to be fun and authentic to who I am. And I don't care if I look like a biker. I just want to be stoked about what I'm wearing, and I want it to reflect how fun
Yeah.
biking is to me. So I think,
Yeah.
there's still different parts of it, but we really
Mm.
tapped into that. It's fun. We want it to be fun. We want it to be approachable, and we don't want you to feel like you're not cool enough to wear it if you're not a pro.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And there's definitely a feeling of some of that stuff, where, um, you walk into a store and you look at what's on the shelf and you're like, am I just like some poser if I buy all this stuff?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So when you first started, kind of throwing these ideas up, like you'd be laying your head down at night thinking about some shorts. What was like the key components that you felt like you needed to meet for this to be like for it to work?
Mhm. Well, first of all, just being a product for women, understanding that you couldn't do one size fits all. Like there
Hmm.
had to, and that's where just fabric selection. So it's three
Hmm.
things: fabric, function, and style. Like those were very important. Needed to look good, needed to feel good, and it needed to fit good. And that was our first tagline, actually: look good, feel good, shred good. Um, and it was kind of amazing to me that those three things were not there yet, like I was saying before, all together
Hmm.
in one package. Um, and also it was because at that time, it was like biking was stuck in the 90s, but it was 2012 when we started. When I look back at what we were all wearing then, it
Right.
looks like seriously 80s or 90s. And so I think sports just in general did not have this stylistic approach quite yet. Like
Hmm.
street style had not transcended into sports style quite yet. And there's way more of a collision there now, which is exciting. So for us, the perfect short needed to have great fabric, and because we were going to accommodate as many different body styles as possible, it needed to be stretchy. And then in terms of comfort, hit in all the right spots and not squeeze in any of the spots that you needed. So coverage,
Hmm.
but comfort. And then functionality slash fit, we consider kind of the same thing. So is it going to do what you need it to do, but feel comfortable while you're doing it? And our whole goal was for you to not think about it. Like the best compliment I can get is when women say, I didn't think about my shorts once on my ride. You know, when you're
Mhm.
climbing and like the climb is horrendous and you're over it, your seat's uncomfortable, your gear's uncomfortable. There's nothing worse or to make you question why you're doing this sport if everything is bothering you.
Yeah.
And apparel, especially for women, chamois, shorts, like that's a huge part of it. So those were the three things that were kind of key. And it took like 8 months to even find the right fabric,
Mhm.
and then to find a pattern maker, and then find a factory. And so, but it really was like this foundational piece. And something that was really important to me was cross functionality. So like I'm a biker, but I'm not just a biker. I love to hike. I love to camp, spend a ton of time outside. So how can we create these products so that people can use them for all the things that they do and they just become a really great all around multi-sport
Yeah.
piece of apparel. And we still, that's how we still design everything. There's thoughtful things like the pockets are mesh. So if you're in the water, you know, the water will go through the pockets and dry quickly. So
Mhm.
just little details like that that I knew would help make them functional across the
Mhm.
board.
So when you first start out, you're taking 8 months to figure out a fabric. Like, what can you explain that to somebody? Like, why? Like, I think I have some experience, doing these podcasts, and I can kind of like understand in my mind what you went through. But like, why would it take 8 months to find a fabric?
Well, for me, it was a few things. I had a full-time job, so this
Hmm.
was like a side project.
Yeah.
And since I had not worked in the industry, finding those resources when you don't already have the relationships and the connections takes time. And Google, it's not like the internet didn't exist, but way different than it is now. So, and that industry is a little bit archaic. So, even 10 years ago, um, a lot of the production in the States had been moved. Like what I learned is technical fabric is not historically made in the States. It's made internationally. So finding, there's a couple different ways you can go about it. I went to a fabric show is how I ended up finding mine because I reached out to a couple, they're called jobbers. And what they'll do is they'll sell you a ton of different fabric from different sources.
Hmm.
Um, but it's best if you can just go in person and feel it in by hand and touch it and
Yeah.
uh, shop around. So you can either be sent a ton of samples and sort through them, and it's hit or miss based on how well you described. If you know what you're looking for, like if you know construction, if you know fabric composition, and if you know weight, it's easy to tell someone what you're looking for. They can send you samples. But when you're new and you don't speak that language yet, or you just don't know, like how heavy do I want the fabric? What type of weave do I want? When you don't know those things, you really, for me, I at least need to see them, touch
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean,
Yeah,
that's where I'm at right now as you're saying this. I'm like, yeah, I would definitely want to touch this stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It just makes the sampling process so much quicker. So I tried both. I was getting samples from people, wasn't loving what I found. So I finally went to a fabric show and was able to find what I was looking for.
So then you go through this show, you're able to put your hands on a bunch of stuff, and at the same time, you're probably coming up with like, what's this design going to look like? Are you doing that at the same time, or are you just like solely focused on just trying to find this fabric?
I had already done it. I already had sketched out kind of what I knew I wanted.
Mhm.
And that's where my education came in handy because I had those tools and I had those resources to be able to create a CAD drawing of what I
Mhm.
wanted. And I was able to take that with me because a lot of people in the industry, they like, they have no idea what mountain biking really is. And they
Yeah.
don't know, even if they know cycling, if they think of road biking, but you're thinking of mountain biking, the nuances there are very important in
Yeah.
terms of abrasion resistance and comfort and a baggy short versus a spandex short. So it was important for me to have the use case visual for them so that they
Mhm.
knew how it would be used because a master of fabric can help you understand like this weave will be more abrasion resistance and you can get it in a really lightweight fabric. Where if you tell
Mhm.
someone you need an abrasive resistant fabric, they might give you something like a Cordura that's really heavy and bomber, but it's not lightweight or comfortable.
Yeah.
So I've learned so much in just not knowing what I didn't know and learning how to communicate with all of these different vendors and suppliers
Mhm.
um, and FaceTime is the easiest way to go about it. Save a lot of
Yeah.
back and forth.
Yeah, yeah. At least you're not flying overseas all the time, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So you get like kind of like an idea of what you want to build, and you get a fabric selected. So then how do you go from there? Is it like you get some fabric and you kind of get somebody locally to kind of stitch something for you, or you like lean right into like having them design something and trying to go to production?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different for everyone, but because we started small and all of our production was in the United States, I was able to look for a small manufacturer that could do the sampling for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I happened, I started talking to a few people because I really didn't know where to start, and I didn't know anyone that had done what I wanted to do. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a model to follow. But I just told the right person who said, I think you should talk to this person. And that person connected me to another person who connected me to another person. And I had been introduced finally to my first factory, who happened to have this magical unicorn that could both be a technical designer, help me with creating the patterns, sewing the samples, and then actually managed our first run production.
Mm-hmm. So initially, were you like, okay, just one pattern and let's see? You're like, we're doing a black short.
Yeah, right. We were anti-black shorts for like the first 7 years, I think. Um, we so we launched our Kickstarter. We started on Kickstarter. That's how we
Oh,
got the
cool.
funding. Yeah, so we launched
How was your
Kickstarter.
experience with that?
It was amazing.
Yeah,
It's so different now than it was then, because crowdfunding then was new. It was scary. It hadn't
yeah,
really been used. I'd only heard about it through the grapevine, not
yeah,
because I knew about it. And this idea, like, you have to create a video talking about your product and you're going to pre-sell your product. And I was like, oh God, that means we have to really like make the product. What if something goes wrong? All these people
yeah.
are giving you their money. But it was the coolest way to start for a small business, because on the same day, sounds crazy now, on the same day that we launched our Kickstarter campaign, we launched Facebook and we launched Twitter. And
Mm-hmm.
Instagram didn't really, it was, I think, there, but wasn't really used quite yet. And
Yeah.
so we had no brand recognition, we had no following, we had nothing. And it literally, we had 30 days for the Kickstarter. So I lived and breathed Kickstarter for 30 days. And
Uh-huh.
it was just like announcing the brand to the world. We had no email lists, like we had no lead generation. And this is back
Right.
when the internet was more organic. So if you didn't have money, it was okay. Word could still
Yeah.
spread. You still got visibility on Facebook. And we didn't
Yeah.
really do Twitter. So it was really through like Facebook, Kickstarter, and locally.
Uh-huh.
We had a fashion show at a hotel in Aspen where everybody had opera, because I should tell you, this was the middle of January.
Mm-hmm.
So not bike season.
Right.
And I had a part-time job. So I was driving around at the same time to bike shops with my little samples, seeing if they were interested in placing orders. And we opened that year with 17 stores in Colorado. And
Mm-hmm.
our Kickstarter it did not look like our Kickstarter was going to be successful in the last day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sitting there, I was traveling visiting a bike shop, and I'm sitting in a coffee shop, like, what are we going to do? And then all of a sudden, like, orders just kept pouring in. And it was because everybody had been following the project and they were so excited about it. And they told their friends who told their friends, and they knew we were down to the wire. And we literally achieved our goal the last day of our campaign. And
Oh,
it was
wow.
really emotional, because I
I'm
just,
sure that was a roller coaster.
oh my gosh. Yeah. And I was just in a coffee shop by myself crying, like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
I wish someone was here to see this. And so that was such a cool start, because, like I said, crowdfunding was new. It was unique. It was scary. There was no, guarantee that it was going to work, but it was so communal. And those
Mm-hmm.
people who backed, we had 128 people back our project. And some of those people are still customers.
Oh,
But
that's awesome.
what it did for them is it made them feel ownership in the brand. And they were super excited about this idea. And since they felt this ownership in, bringing this brand to fruition,
Yeah.
they have been the best customers, the best salespeople throughout the years. And they were really like the base to our community, which was
Mm-hmm.
just a cool way to start a brand, which I don't think you could recreate in the same way now if you tried, because things have just changed so much. But I had
Yeah.
a great experience with it.
Yeah. The guy I had on last week started a company called Rec Pack that does like nutrition. It's like lightweight nutrition that you just add water
Mm,
to.
Oh,
And he started on Kickstarter, and but this was more recent. And
hmm.
he said that he really felt like he could, because you have to market your Kickstarter. And he was saying that he felt like he probably could have spent the same marketing money and got the kind of like same order response not using Kickstarter. But I think when you did it, it's definitely like it was a way different game at that point. But he also
Hmm.
said that he thinks Kickstarter's better for products versus like something edible, like what he was doing,
Oh.
where he was thinking because it was food based, like more people go to Kickstarter and they're looking for like something cool or something like
Hmm.
they could wear, or you know what I mean, like. And he felt like in the nutrition space it wasn't as good of a tool. So that's why I was really curious to hear
Yeah.
your experience.
Well, and the point that you said about the money that he needed to spend just to market it, I think that would be the challenge. Like, how do you break through the digital noise that's there and everything is pay to
Yeah,
play? Even platforms that don't charge you for marketing, there's so many projects now and they're so big and they're so popular. Even just getting visibility on them, I could see being a little bit more
right.
challenging. So it'll
Yeah,
be
you have.
cool to see what's next. Like, what's that next incubator that helps people get brands off the ground?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think the thing that you said there, though, in your experience, that will always hold true is that like make a product that people enjoy, and then your community, your word of mouth community, they will do more for you than any money that you're going to spend. You
Yeah.
know?
And it's such a good test too. Even if I knew that Kickstarter was going to be expensive and it was going to be hard, but if you were unsure about your product,
Hmm.
Kickstarter will tell you. Because well, I shouldn't say that. I used to think when we did it, it's a great use case test because if
Hmm.
it's not successful and you've gotten the word out, that means people don't like the product. Um,
Yeah,
and I think that should mean something. So there could be some other factors that might, affect how successful you are. But I
yeah,
do think it's a great place to test because you get real time
yeah,
feedback. Are people willing to put their money behind it?
yeah, yeah. No, it's definitely. I mean, there's definitely been a lot of companies that have succeeded because of it, and I think what you said it though as well as like the time that you were there, it was really more of a new thing. So I think there was a lot of people with eyes on that site at that time that people like don't necessarily visit it like they did at that
Yeah.
point, you know?
Hmm.
Where
Yeah.
now it's like you find out about your Kickstarter campaigns from Facebook, you
Yeah.
know? It's like an ad that you saw on Instagram, and then you're like, "Oh, this is actually like their algorithm is what's feeding you," instead of then it was like people were like, "Go to this site, Kickstarter, and they have
Whole
just
new
all this
thing.
cool shit there," you
Yeah.
know? Like, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I've had people ask me, who are doing projects on there since how it went for me, but it's such a different game now than it was. It's cool though to see what else it has spurred because
Mhm.
there's a platform called Kick Further, and we've not used it, but it's really interesting. And I see a lot of brands that are already in existence, but they need to fund like a new product or a new
Yeah.
category, and so they'll go to Kick Further, and you can actually buy into it. So instead of it's like it's like buying equity into a company, but at a very small amount that could be one unit of product or something. So
Yeah.
you could contribute. Like if you were super pumped on the idea, you could be like, okay, I'm going to pitch $10,000 to this product. And then you actually own equity in the
Yeah.
business in that amount. But if you only had like $100, you'd still own, a small percent. But it's another cool way to just get people engaged and
Yeah.
um, to stay engaged with your brand. So it's cool to see, that's why I said I can't wait to see what's next because there's all this innovation in that space.
Yeah.
Um, so it's amazing what resources you do have as an entrepreneur. It's not the traditional go to a bank, get funding, you know,
Mhm.
model that it used to be. You can attack it from a ton of different ways.
So you initially started out with this Kickstarter campaign, and what was the campaign like pitched for? Like just to get a bunch of sales to get you kind of off your feet, or were you looking to raise money so that you could do like more production, or because it sounds like you were also trying to work like a retail angle at the same time.
Mhm.
So,
It was all pre-books. So it
mhm,
was literally us just pre-selling our first line. I knew what the line was. That's what people were buying. They knew what the line was too. So we basically launched the line. which was like maybe 6 colorways of shorts, 3 colorways of tops, and 1 chamois. It was very small. And so we were pre-selling those items. So I'd already committed to that production, but we still needed the money to pay for production. So it was kind of a
Right.
leap of faith. Like, okay, I've
Right.
committed to this production. I've bought the fabric, but we haven't paid for production yet. So we need to pre-sell this stuff to pay for it. And
Yeah.
at the same time, we were opening wholesale accounts and they were buying against that same inventory.
So, so this thing works, and you're like, okay, now I'm done crying at the coffee shop. I got to
Yeah.
get the business. So, what do you do then?
Oh gosh. Well, then it was like, okay, wow, now I need to figure out how I'm going to fill orders. So I would literally go home on my lunch break and fill orders myself. And then I had to, I had to figure out the operational side of the business. Like, okay, then there's customer care, then there's returns and exchanges, and what is our marketing strategy? And it's so fun. Like, we didn't have an email list. We didn't send emails, I don't think, until our 3rd year in business, maybe. And so it was just kind of figuring out what was next. I had a business plan, but because I had never done this and I didn't really know what to expect and I had no idea if it was going to be successful, it was very much a like, okay, we launched the Kickstarter campaign. It was successful. Then it was going into production, making sure that that was successful. Then it was receiving the first batch of product. And then it was shipping things out. And then it was getting things live on the website, because we only had Kickstarter. We didn't have the website yet because we didn't have anything to sell yet. So it was kind of just like taking it one step at a time, and what the next thing was, uncovered what there was to figure out and what there was to do. And I did it in a very grassroots. It was just me by myself. And like I said, I had at this point a part-time job. The attic was in my sister's, or the warehouse was in my sister's attic at that point. So it was just figuring out, like what is the next thing that we need. My family, I remember, helped me receive all the product. It was a total like community family affair of things.
Yeah. It's all grassroots at that point. And I think, most places like start out that way, it's not like it's a grind, right? So one of the things that I'm curious about is how you figured out what to do with your sizing, because women's body shapes are very different from one to the next, where most men, in the waist section or whatever is like, it's similar, so it's pretty easy to kind of like, hey, just make the waist bigger, and maybe there's some discrepancies in the length, and that's about it. But for the most part, it's pretty similar or proportionate, you could say. But like with women, some women have much bigger hips than others, or some are not. And I think that's what you're talking about at the beginning when you're saying, we want something that's going to fit our bodies, And so what do you do? How do you like how do you overcome that?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it was just intuitive. I think that's where, like the phrase "for women by women," you already get a leg up, because just from yourself or from your immediate peers, some of the things that are important to consider. So I knew from the beginning that women, it's not one size fits all, not even one style fits all. So our goal was like, what's the best we can do with this one style, knowing that that was just going to be a starting point. And what we did was we fit our first samples, on as many different sizes and body shapes as we could. And we looked for common denominators of things that we needed to change. And once we found a fit that we felt like accommodated as many different variances as it could, that was our final, first style. And then when it came to sizing, we started with 0 to 12, which is not a big size range at all. But it was what we had capacity to do, because there's costs associated with all of it. Laying out all the styles to cut them on the table, storing each SKU, having buyers order them and carry that inventory. So I knew that we needed to start smaller and that we would continue to expand that. And also, we just wanted to test the market. And we really let the market lead our direction in terms of product development. We love customer feedback. And, it was, people were for the most part so excited. But even that first year, you'd get people that were like, bummed you don't make my size. And that sucked. It sucked to hear that. It sucked that we were excluding them. But it was good. It's what we needed to know. Okay, there's demand for it. So as long as there's demand for something and we hear it over and over, that leads our direction. And so the next year, then we expanded the sizes and we went 00 to 18. And then after that, the next step was 00 to 24. And that's where we currently are. And it's probably not where we'll stay forever. But again, just listening to that customer feedback and demand to make those decisions on when to expand. But one thing we did in the beginning that was really unique, especially for that time, is we didn't go with extra small to 3X. And the reason we did that was because in between those sizes, there's usually like a 3 to 4 inch difference in between each size. So you can be a medium and not get your size. So I knew, which was not how everybody else did it, but I knew that going with a numbered size system would give us credibility as a women's brand, knowing that we took this into consideration, and it would increase the probability that women would find the size that actually fit them. Because in the numbered system, there's only a 1 about inch difference in between each size. For the most part, that changes on the small and the large size of the large end of the size spectrum, but for the most part. So you can almost wear 3 sizes: the size you are, the size above, and the size below. But the size that you are should fit you much better than close to the size you are.
How do you manage stuff like the waist versus the leg size? So I know in my conversations with Tasco, like me personally, I'm at a point where my waist is starting to get small enough that it's hard for me to get shorts that fit that waist size, but that are big enough for my legs.
Yeah. And that's every woman's, it's not easy. And stretchy fabrics is like your best friend, because you cannot find a silhouette that will fit all body shapes. Even someone who's the same size, same weight, carries their weight differently, builds muscle in different ways, different places. And so there is the only thing that you can do at that point is have a ton of different models. Like I joke, we could be like the Gap. We could have every model of pant and short that you can think of and still not fit everybody. So it's a matter of, you bring up a great point, because the hip to waist ratio was probably the hardest thing from our first model of short, because it was a low rise short. If you have a narrow waist and a bigger hip ratio, you're going to have gapping. That's just what happens with low rise. So I knew that our next style needed to be a higher rise short with more articulation, smaller waist, bigger hip ratio. And so that was the next style of short that we added. And so the way that you handle that is you just listen to customer feedback. I see our samples and I see our shorts on as many different people as I can. And when I go to events, it's critical feedback and information for me, because as the designer, seeing people try on our stuff and how it fits them and what they might need a little bit differently has been really helpful in determining, like, okay, what's the next thing that we need that we can't accomplish with a change to the existing styles or fabrics that we're using.
It's got to be really hard for you to make your decisions on like how much of what to order, because of, I mean, that's such a wide range of sizes, you say 0 to 24. I'm not 100% on women's sizes, but I'm pretty sure they go by 2s, right? So it's not like there's not a 1 and a 3, Right. But still, that's 12 different sizes. And then you have, in addition, you're telling me you have different cuts. So you have cuts that are like maybe for somebody that's more hippie and somebody that's maybe more just like slender, right?
And now we have different inseam lengths.
Right.
So you add it. The forecasting piece of it is so data driven and it's hard, but you learn, like we learn just based on data about how much we think we can sell of a new item. Sometimes we're wrong and sometimes we're right, but it is amazing to see these patterns in data that help you make decisions. But when you don't have any data to go off of because you've never had something like that, new category growth is really hard to forecast. And so it's just a learning experience. And when you're small, you don't want to leave anything on the table. So you don't want to order less than you think you'll need, but you don't want to sit on too much inventory because that's really, really challenging for a small business. And so it's just learning what your risk thresholds are, and, supply chain matters and speed to market matters. And so if you can have a quick speed to market, you can make some of your hot items a lot faster, but for the most part, you can't do that in a season when your lead time is 3 months for new production plus shipping time. And so that gets a little bit more challenging. And when you're not centrally located, next to all of your suppliers and manufacturers, then that's not as possible. So we've shifted a lot over the years in terms of where things are made, and our speed to market in the States is definitely our fastest supply chain, but the States doesn't have the capacity. So we've had, we made everything in the United States for 10 years, which was something we were committed to. It's how we started the business. COVID completely disrupted that. And in some ways we gained access to better technology and better production. In other ways, we lost some competitive advantages that we had in terms of speed to market. So that's not really answering your question, but just tied to it, it's really hard to forecast. You almost have to wait a year to keep the momentum going with like a new category that's hot for you. So it's definitely an area where technology, is helping us do a better job at all of that. But also it's just a lot of learning and data mining.
Yeah, it's probably hard. I mean, on top of all of the sizing, the last layer is like the design itself, right? So it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter if you have all the right sizes, but if it's not a pattern that people are excited about, it ain't going anywhere.
It's hard. I've gotten really good at, like, I'm not a unicorn or a dinosaur person, but I know people love them. And so I've gotten good at having a sense for what I think will do well and what I won't. But we'll have years and seasons where people are like, oh, I feel like you're really missing the mark on those true Shredly prints. Like, please bring back some of the OG styles that, we all fall in love with. So that's where it's just really amazing to have close relationships with your customers and be open for that feedback and be wanting that feedback. We do a lot of customer surveys so that we get that data firsthand. Like, what is it that you love? What is it that you miss? What is it that you don't like? In the beginning, it's hard to hear all that because it's so attached to your blood, sweat, and tears. But then you realize how valuable that data is, and you want to hear it. But yeah, you're hitting all of the, hot buttons in terms of what's both risky, challenging, frustrating, and it's hard to do. But like I said, we're so lucky that the decision comes down to me. So we're able to take some risks there sometimes where you might not be able to get that approved by somebody who's managing your bottom line and you count.
I think adding the inseam length is huge as well, that you added there. You kind of threw that out a little bit earlier. And I think that having that option really could change, a buying decision for somebody, and I think especially for shorts. I mean, it's such a personal preference. Like, some people love their shorts to be at their knees and some people don't, and it's definitely like, man, I really like that pattern, but there's been shorts before where I'm like, that's too short. I don't want to wear that. So I think, having something where you could go and choose that, I think that's huge.
Well, it's funny too, because then you have to be like, okay, well, am I going to offer this color in every single inseam length? Because the one inseam length you don't offer it in, people are going to be super bummed and they want it. And so we used to just be even across the board. Like, we're going to offer the same colorways in every inseam length so that it's available. But then we analyze the data and, the inseam lengths that we don't sell the most of. And there's these trends that change, like long shorts. We're seeing an exodus from long shorts, and we're seeing people go to shorter shorts. And so now we don't want to get rid of those long shorts because there's some people that's all they wear. And so it's like making sure that, and having, like lifelong customers and incredibly loyal customers, you want to keep them in mind. Like, they are, part of why you're still in business. And so you don't want to disappoint your true loyalists because you want to appeal to all of your new customers. So it's really this balance of so many different things, all of the different variants, all of the different inputs that go into it. And then all the different kinds of consumers that you're trying to appeal to, because there can be a big difference between a new rider and an experienced rider in terms of their gear. And so we have to be really thoughtful about making sure our gear is appealing to new riders. and then advanced riders as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think then it's like, and then it's just like the personal preference as well, you know. So there's so many variations there, and I think it's really nice that you have the ability, because I'm relating it to like my experience with YouTube and what I do is like, you at least have the sales data to like back up what some of the people say, because a lot of times you may have a large group of people telling you that this is what they want, but they're actually not the buying power. You know, and I'm sure you see this with what you like. You may have, you know, 100 people walk up to you at a fest and say, we want X style of shorts. But then you know that like when I've made those, they don't actually sell. It's actually only those 100 people that would buy it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like 10% of people follow through on what they say.
Yeah.
And I think like with our sustainability measures too, the things that are really important to us as a company and really important to us as our sustainability goals,
Mm-hmm.
when people say that they're willing to pay for that, in the end, are they really willing to pay for that? And so there's also so many different factors aside from what we're just talking about from a product perspective in terms of color, style, length, etc. But then just company ethos and all the things that affect how your pricing structure is put together.
Yeah, I think that the thing that is just really most amazing to me is like how many variations that you have and how you're able to accomplish that um and be profitable. Just because like I know like in my experience with talking to other like clothing brands, like that's the thing where it's like there's a ton. I'm a bigger guy, and there's a ton of people that reach out to me all the time that are like, hey, what shorts do you wear? Because I can't find anything that's like bigger than a 38 size waist, right? And unfortunately, I'm a bigger guy that doesn't carry his weight in his waist. So like I've always like, for at least unfortunately to answer that question, for me it's like, oh well, I still wear, I could be 260 pounds and I'm still wearing a 36 waist, you
Mhm.
know, just because where I carry my weight at, you know. So I never really tackled that problem, but I hear this a lot, you know, because of the assumption that people make when they see me on my videos and stuff. So whenever I talk to somebody, like let's just say Tasco, I'll use them because I talk to him a lot. It's like, well, you know, it's a lot of money to run sizes from 38 to, let's just say, 48, and it's like a small demographic of people that will actually buy them then, you know. And you're hitting so many different sizes, and also with the lengths. I know it's like it's just gotta it's hard for me to fathom how you do it, you know.
As we're talking about it, I'm like, yeah, I mean, we're so lucky that it's working in our favor because all of the things that you talk about, can work for you or against you.
Yeah.
Um, and but you brought up a good point. It's really hard to test things too that you don't know will work. And I know a lot of companies ask us how we handle offering the sizes that we do, because they want to increase their size range and they've tried it and it's just not selling. And so they don't have buy-in from marketing or, product
Yeah.
that's making those decisions for them. But one of the things that I can say firsthand is that it takes time. It takes time for people to learn about your products and to learn what you offer. And historically, especially in sports, people that fall outside of the median size range know and have been trained that most brands do not cater to them. And it's
Yeah.
a smaller part of the market, but it's a growing part of the market and it's an underserved part of the market. And so if you
Yeah.
really want to if you want to increase your addressable market, which we will spend tons of money trying to increase the total addressable market, there are a lot of niche consumers out there that brands are leaving behind because they don't think that it's big enough. But
Hmm.
what we have learned is that having a more authentic offering for our customer base gives our brand so much credibility that brings in other customers that fall in the median size. And
Hmm.
so it's something that you have to commit to and you have to try for longer than a season to see how it's really going to work for you. And I feel like that's even when we launched killer new products that we know people are going to love, that people who have love, that if you touch in person, they love, we'll have a year where it maybe doesn't do well. And it takes like a year for it to catch fire or a year for it to get out there. And so that's a long lead time to test something to see how it's going to work. And it's committing resources that could be going somewhere else. And so I think a lot of it just comes down to like brand authenticity and why do you exist? What is your purpose for being, and what products, do you need to be offering to achieve those?
Yeah. So I know when I was at Sea Otter, you guys had pants, and I'm assuming, judging by the way that you size your shorts, are you doing your pants in waist and inseam?
So pants have the same size range as shorts, and inseam is like one of our biggest requests. So actually in 2025, we have an adjustable inseam pant. So we don't have tons of different inseam pants like we do shorts. We are trying to offer like one pant that has 3 different inseam options on it, and it's adjustable because
so
we know
it's adjustable. So how do you adjust an inseam? So I can think of how you can adjust a waist, but
yeah. Well, it's kind of a secret until
it's a secret. Okay.
No one else is doing it. So I'm super excited about it because it has been an engineering challenge. But those are the types of things I love. And normally when we first launch them, sometimes it's like, oh, how did we miss that? Or like, oh, it's kind of missing the mark here. So it definitely is like an evolution of product. But it's one of those cases where I'm like, nobody, like with everybody paring down and everyone's over inventoried from COVID, gone are the days where you can, have more SKUs than you have room for, that you can afford to store, that that you can market. And so, our theme for next year is along the lines of paring things down. How can we do more with less? And that pant is an example of that.
Yeah, I think that'll do well. I know my wife is tall, and you met her at Sea Otter, and one of the things that her and I have always had a conversation about is like why women's pants don't sell in waist and length like men's pants do.
Yeah.
Where it's like, where men, you could actually probably get away with it less, like,
I know.
And it's like with women, it's like, oh my God, it's like, why, if she wants to get something that's long enough for her, then it's like, yeah, the waist is not going to fit her. There's no way. And then if she gets something that's the waist fits, it's like, oh yeah, and now they're capris, so.
I know, it's the norms in the industry sometimes. And it just takes, like, what I loved starting without having done it before is that I just didn't know what I didn't know. So some things I recreated the wheel, and that maybe wasn't the best use of my time, but with other things, it was like taking a brand new approach. And that's what I feel we didn't invent numeric sizing, but using it in bike apparel was very new. And so just taking a fresh approach forces you to think outside the box a little bit if you don't have a model that you're used to working by. And that's a perfect example. Like, why is it that way? Why are pants still, like, high rise is coming back, but for a while there, having pants numbered by waist size made no sense because we didn't wear them up around our waist. And so people always got confused that the pants should fit, the pants are this measurement because they're 25, but they're not a 25 when you wear them around your hips, not your waist.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah.
Away from each other.
Yeah. It's very interesting with all of that in mind. So you're like, it's one whole rabbit hole to get down into the sizing. But then on the other hand, it's like the pattern side of it. So what was it that, like, in your mind, you were like, how do I make these patterns like fun? How do you decide what is fun for you compared to what is fun for somebody else? Or do you just like pick a lane for your brand and try to stay in that? What's your approach been that way?
Yeah, well, we categorize our prints behind the scenes into hot, medium, and mild. And so we really try to have like those loud, wild, hot prints, and then something that's maybe a little bit more medium, and then mild. Like, we have a lot of people who love our fit, they love our fabric, they just don't do loud prints. And so that was an evolution that we kind of had to learn. because when we first launched, it was what spoke to me that I thought would speak to other people. And then,
Right.
as I learned, like I said before, I, probably wouldn't have picked unicorns and dinosaurs, and those are some of our top sellers. And so it
Yeah.
really is like listening to what people want, but having a
Right.
sense of like, I know that's saleable or I know that it's not.
Yeah.
And so really like I get to be the final decision maker, but I like to collect as many different
Yeah.
opinions as I can. And then it really is just, you can't be everything to everybody, but we really do try to make sure that we have a good representation across the board of those, hot to milds.
Hmm.
And then in terms of like varying it, like I would probably pick floral every year because that just speaks to me. But having
Hmm.
a mix of floral and geometric and more like solid-ish type patterns. And so really kind of trying to mix it up. But there's this, it's a very real thing of having analysis paralysis. And so we've also learned over the years, like how many prints we should have on the website because you get to
Yeah.
have too many. And it's hard for someone to make a decision, but you don't have enough. And in a small town where riding is really communal and not everybody wants to wear the same color, you want to at
Yeah.
least have enough so that they can, have something to pick from.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things that is fun about some companies that are doing, let's just call it smaller batches, something like like where here is this pattern, and I'm thinking in terms of gloves right now, but it's like we only have these, we know these are going to sell in 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're going to have another something,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think that drives people probably with their sales as well. It's like, hey, when this new pattern comes out at Shredly, you better get on it
Mm-hmm.
because you might not be able to get it if you don't,
Mm-hmm. Scarcity.
Yeah. So what do you do for marketing then now? I mean, now at this point you're 12 years into it. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that you have, a great base of repeat customers, but
Mm-hmm.
you're still obviously trying to expand your brand, right?
Yeah, exactly. And gosh, our marketing mix is so much different than it used to be because there's just new tech, there's new things, like
Mhm.
paid advertising. When I first started, it was like kind of a thing, but not core to business like it is today. And so we still have to pick and choose because we can't be everywhere that we would like to be. We have, a limited budget in that way. So for us, it's all about allocating our resources strategically so that we feel like we're in the best places for us and for our customers and our community, really. But we still rely so much. We're such a communal brand, and we still have so many great, loyal customers that are, we don't undervalue word of mouth. We don't undervalue grassroots methods,
Mhm.
even though we're 12 years old. You don't ever really have to grow out of that. And we're still competing against really big companies that have
Mhm.
um, a lot of them take note from our product. Like we are a leader in the space when it comes to product development and new ideas and some really popular things like a stretch waistband. And so when we see really big brands that are doing similar things, we know, that they're in their design meetings talking about what we're doing. And so trying to stay ahead of that in both product perspective and then just really keeping our roots when it comes to marketing so that it
Mhm.
doesn't always feel so salesy. I mean, you have to break through that noise and you have to get in front of your customers and you want new customers, but making sure that you keep your authenticity throughout that, I would say is actually a challenge. It's hard to
Mhm.
do. And so always trying to figure out ways that we can stay true to who we are, but
Mhm.
be evolving as necessary with changing times and just, a brand that's kind of grown up with
Mhm.
our community. And what does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah, it's I'm sure some of that's like feels good when you see the bigger brands copy you, but on the other hand, you're like, dude, I put into legwork. I mean, I watched this recently with a company that I had on a long time ago, Bivo, that makes an insulated water bottle,
Yeah,
like
we love
stainless
Vivo.
bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're awesome products. And then it's like this year at Sea Otter, you roll by the Camelback tent, and all of a sudden they have a stainless bottle,
Mhm,
and it's like,
mhm,
oh, wait a minute,
mhm,
and they have, such a wide net that they can cast
mhm,
that then people are like, oh yeah, Camelback came out with this bottle, and it's like, no, no,
mhm,
they
mhm,
they they saw it and then they put their stamp on it.
mhm. Yeah, and it's not just the big companies. I mean, I think one of the things that you also have to just keep in mind is that it's always evolving. The new brands are replaced by smaller, more core brands, and then you're a legacy brand, but are you the cool new boutique brand, or is someone else, as you start to grow and in customers' minds, you're the bigger one and then they're the small one? And we've seen that in our space where, we're not the only for women by women brand, and we kind
Yeah.
of paved the way for that, and we are the legacy brand when it comes to that. But from a marketing perspective, everyone's story is that they kind of created their space. And so when you have similar stories, like for Bivo, to, you want the marketing message to remind people that you are the legacy brand when it comes to that product, but you don't want to alienate. It's a
Yeah.
small industry. Like
Yeah.
you want to be friendly with all of the brands,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
want to feel like
100%.
we're just all stoked that there's more customers coming into the space. And if there's not enough customers, for more than one brand to cater to with the same type of product, then we're probably
Mhm.
not in the right space. And so
Yeah.
we always try to view that as, it's healthy competition. It helps your product development get better. Like if you're the one that's out there innovating and doing it, and you're small and you're nimble, you can work faster than the bigger brands. And so what's the next thing that you're going to do that's going to take them a few years to do? And
Yeah.
it's interesting being in a small communal space, but there's still cutthroat business, and
Yeah.
that's just the reality.
Yeah. So your shorts also have a kind of a stretch on the waist as well.
Hmm.
How do
Yeah.
you accommodate that with yours? I've seen a bunch of different ways to go about that. What is it? How are you doing your waist stretch?
So when we launched that second style I told you about, that I knew needed to be more accommodating to different hip to waist ratio,
Mm-hmm.
um, we implemented a yoga style waistband, which you
Mm-hmm.
probably now have seen in other brands.
Mm-hmm.
So we took like a yoga stretch knit
Oh, okay.
waistband. It's a pull-on short, has no
Yeah.
zippers, has no snaps, but it's a higher rise, smaller waist, bigger hip ratio. That's our more articulated style.
Uh-huh. That's interesting. Yeah. I was just thinking, like in men's shorts, it's like, a couple of different ways that people do it. And we definitely don't have something like that,
Yeah, I know some guys might be a little wary about it, but we get a ton of requests like, why don't you make men's shorts like that? Or I want that type of
Yeah.
comfort in my
Yeah, I
clothing.
think there's a space for it. I think that there's a space for a lot of the things that you're talking about in men's as well. And I think what it really comes down to is that um it's comfort and then it's style,
Mhm,
right? And we've had like a long run of things that are gonna like do the job, but we don't have a long run in like comfort and style,
mhm,
and
mhm,
and I think that you're starting to see that more and more in women and in men. Is that like I think it also has to do with like just our like people in society in general right now. Like everybody wants to kind of express themselves to
mhm,
like who they are individually, right? So you want to go to the bike or like out on the trail, and like a company like Sticker that does decals can make your bike look different,
mhm,
and instead of ever like showing up and like, yeah, everybody's riding the same like six brands of bikes or whatever, but you can make yours look different,
mhm,
by adding this or adding that. And I think the same thing is happening in clothing. And I think the way that you really, at least, in mountain biking, in my eyes, like the way that you really saw it come to market was like through gloves, where all of a sudden it was like these wild gloves. And then it's like, then I started seeing, companies like yours that where I remember the first time I saw Shredley at an event. I'm pretty sure I was at Sea Otter, and I
mhm.
remember walking like towards the tent and just seeing the shorts from a distance and being like, "Oh, sick! I can't wait to check these out." And then I got over there and I'm like, "Oh, they're all women's
Yeah,
shorts," like,
that happens
damn
often.
it.
Yeah, they're different. They stand out,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I later, I had done a video where it was like one of my friends was like, "I don't even care. I'm gonna buy the women's size that fits me then,
We get
whatever it is." Because
Oh,
and it's like then now I can have some hot pink shorts with a cool geometric
yeah.
design on it and
Yeah.
whatever, so
Well, surprisingly, women's clothes look great on men, where it's not always the other way around, because
yeah,
men come in different shapes and sizes too, and it's not one fits all. There maybe is a little bit more commonality,
yeah,
but for the most part, our shorts end up actually looking really great on men. So every year, every event, we sell to quite a few men because they want the fun patterns too.
Yeah. Have you ever considered like making a line like that?
Yeah, it's come up obviously, like as we're, trying to figure out how do we continue to grow and expand in what is underserved. And it just comes back to like what are our roots? And it's not like we've plateaued on the women's side of things. There's so
Right.
much more that we can offer women. So it's important
Yeah.
to me to make sure that before we were to ever make a move like that, that we feel like we are really doing the best job to offer women everything that they need. Because it's a different business than what we're currently in.
Yeah. So what are some of the other like things that women commonly have, what is a request that a woman would be looking for in their cycling gear compared to like just going and buying some men's stuff that's smaller?
Mm-hmm. You mean category wise? Like what are the types of products or what are the components that they're looking for?
Maybe the components. Let's start
Mm-hmm.
there.
Well, those three things that I talked about in the beginning that we designed our short around, it
Mm-hmm.
being comfortable, it being stylish and functional,
Mm-hmm.
we still believe those are buying considerations. Of course, they're thinking of price and all of the, nuanced things when it comes to shopping decisions, but it's not like I don't think people's opinions are going to change in terms of how they're shopping. Like you're seeing it maybe more of a trend that men care more about aesthetic when I think it used to be that you could assume that they were fine with a black short. That's
Yeah.
not true. It was never true. Everybody wants options. Everybody wants to be able to express themselves with what they're wearing. So I think
Right.
that we're just seeing these paradigm shifts in the market where people want it to be more personalized. People want it to reflect them and their personality or the fun of the sport. And so I think that more than ever, when women are making shopping decisions now, is in terms of the style part, is this exuding the emotion that I want it to exude when I wear it?
Mm-hmm.
And there's such a fun element to it that I still think women's buying decisions are fit first because nobody's gonna,
Yeah.
want something that's uncomfortable, function, and then style.
Mm-hmm.
I still think those are the key
Yeah.
components.
Is there something like particularly with men's shorts that like are like would be something where you're like, I want to overcome this, like it like because the way that a men's short is it like the crotch will bunch on a woman quicker than it will for a man, or something like that. Was there something like that where you really were like, this, we definitely got to fix this?
Yeah, it definitely in the thigh, hip, waist area is
Mm-hmm.
where I would say that most women, when wearing men's, shorts, don't feel like they equate. But what I
Mm-hmm.
will say is that it's just silhouette because men's styles are mostly baggy. So you don't have to deal with the comfort fit as much. So comfort fit means that it's not super tight, but it's not super loose. It's just
Right.
kind of in the middle. So for
Mm-hmm.
women, that's more commonly a fit that we seek out instead of a super baggy fit. When it's
Right.
baggy and you have a waist adjustment, as long as you can adjust that waist to stay up on your hips, you don't really
Right.
care about how the rest fits. But
But if the leg tapers in, then it's like, oh, this is a problem.
yeah, true. Little things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so for women, like the front rise of the shorts, the back rise of the shorts, the width of the hip, the width of the thigh, when that's not super baggy, if it's not working for you, it's really not working for you. So there's
Mm-hmm.
less room for, any margin of error when it comes to that. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that that's the main difference is that silhouettes for men are typically more of a relaxed fit and for women a little bit more of a comfort fit. And so it has to be more tailored and it needs
Mm-hmm.
to, fit well when it's tailored. Otherwise it doesn't feel right.
Do you feel that the tailored option well, I mean, you would know about your sales, is that something that sells more in the women's market as far as the tops go as well?
No, that's a little bit, especially for a sporty look. Then it's more discipline almost. Like road has a tighter look.
Yeah.
Gravel, maybe in between, and then mountain bike traditionally a little bit looser.
Mm-hmm.
So for the silhouette of the tops and the stretchiness that we use in our fabrics, that's a little bit more just standard across the board, where it's like either a baggy or a tight fit.
Mm-hmm. When you started, then it seemed like, okay, you said you launched with shorts, shirts, and chamois. Why did you go with like the whole package right out the gate instead of just like, let's try shorts and cross that bridge first?
Oh gosh, that's a great reason. Probably because I knew each one of those items needed to be addressed.
Hmm.
I'm gonna sneeze.
Oh no,
Excuse
definitely.
me.
Bless you. Yeah, no, it
Can you edit
happens.
that
Yeah,
out?
right.
um, no, I knew that I wanted the whole look because
Hmm.
if someone was wearing a new pair of straddly shorts and they weren't wearing the cute top that we created to go with it, it wasn't really achieving what my vision of like kind of
Right.
bursting onto the scene and disrupting things was all
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
And then chamois just historically like so terrible.
Yeah.
And they've gotten so much better. But I also knew that I just wanted like I wanted people to not hate putting on their chamois. And so I tried
Hmm.
really, really, really hard to come up with something that seemed like it was a little bit new
Hmm.
of an approach.
So what did you do with the chamois? I'm very interested in that because uh I feel like, I don't know why, but I feel like there's so much room for improvement in that whole chamois zone that I'm like, why is it such a like, it's, I don't like the options that I have as a man, so I'm sure it's just
Mhm,
as bad for
mhm,
women.
mhm. I feel like one of the things that we've really had to grapple with when it comes to chamois is science versus experience.
Hmm.
Like, just for example, science tells us that a denser foam should be better for a long time in the saddle.
Hmm.
Impact, all of those things. In our experience, at least in my team's experience, a loftier, lighter foam is more comfortable. It's more
Yeah.
malleable. And so it's kind of like not arguing with your suppliers, but the people who put tons and tons of technology behind this denser foam that's supposed to give you better performance. If in real life experience that is not more comfortable, we go
Yeah.
with real life experience before we love the data and we love the science, and you can't discount that, but there's nothing like a real life experience to help you make a decision. So to your point, I think that's why there's some of these very highly studied products where there's still room for improvement.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like sometimes I'm like, maybe they're designing this for a road person and they're just trying to apply that technology to mountain biking. And then it's like, it's just somebody that doesn't actually cycle. That's like, yeah, that's, I mean, if they're riding a bike, it's the same
Mhm,
thing. And it's like, yeah, but on road, it's like you're sitting in a
mhm,
stagnant position pretty much the entire time.
mhm,
So it's a totally different situation than
mhm.
it is in a mountain biking situation. Then it's like, yeah, in road, you're not going through a creek. So like, I don't want this material to sit here and now be a dirty, wet diaper that I'm
Yeah,
riding around with for the next 2 hours, you know?
yeah, totally. I know. Yeah, that's you should start a chamois company.
Yeah. Yeah. I honestly recently, um, I've been complaining about my chamois to Hand Up and Tasco for a while and telling them both like, you guys need to make chamois or whatever. And the the guy at Tasco kept telling me like, dude, I don't make one, but I sell one on my website by this other guy, and it's just amazing. And I'm that same, consumer that like goes and looks at the price and is like, no. And I finally got one, and I was like, oh my god, I wish I would have done this like years
Yeah.
ago. Because he was right.
Good
It's so
experience.
good.
I mean, some things are worth paying for, and that's
Yeah.
just there's a reason why it's that price. I mean, mountain bike is
Yeah.
not I can't say this for every brand, but it's not one of those high margin, uh, you know, spaces to be.
Mhm.
And so typically, I know it's hard for the consumer, but there's a reason why there's a price tag attached to a
Yeah.
lot of these very technical garments.
So how did you address that with Shredly? Because it's very easy to make $150 pair of shorts,
Hmm.
and but then it's not going to be able to sell it,
Yeah.
And
Well, go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead. I think you get the drift of where I'm going. So
Yeah. That was a big challenge, especially when we had everything made in the States.
mhm.
And you can either do value based pricing Or you can do, value-based would mean like, well, my margin needs to be this, but I could sell this for this because I know that that's what it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
We very much have to just go with a model that keeps our business running.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that puts you at a price that people are just not willing to spend, and then it's a gamble. Like, are you going to be able to convince them but you're going to love these? These are going to be your favorite pair of shorts, or do you just know that that's not going to resonate with the market? And so for us, we kind of take a hybrid approach of knowing what people are willing to pay
Mm-hmm.
and what we need our margins to be to survive. And it's kind of amazing because whatever price point you're at, people are going to say you're too expensive.
Yeah.
And but then they also care about where their garments come from. And some people won't buy from certain countries. And so it's really hard because I think unless the consumer has worked in a space where they understand how pricing is determined,
Mm-hmm.
or if they've ever had just an experience with that, you appreciate it in a different way.
Yeah.
And you can't get everything. You can't demand the price that comes from a country that you're not willing to buy from.
Yeah. Yeah. I know when I've talked to Hand Up and Tasco, they have two different approaches. Like Hand Up definitely makes clothing that is cheaper,
Mm-hmm.
and they know that they're sacrificing like fit and durability to hit that like price, right? So they're like, you know what? Yeah, our shirts are $50 and you're going to wear them out and they're going to fall apart and you're going to buy 3 pairs of them, but that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
You're okay with that
Mm-hmm.
because we're going to make different styles or, like funny colors or whatever,
Right.
And then on the other hand, it's like, okay, well, like Tasco's approach is more like, okay, well, we want something that's, going to fit, like feel amazing to you.
Mm-hmm.
And, just like hit all those things like just perfectly where you're like what you said earlier, I'm not thinking about my shorts,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to cost you, $100 a pair of shorts, let's just say. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's, it's tough because how do how do you decide which way you want to like operate,
Yeah. And I think that's an easy decision based on your brand ethos.
Uh-huh.
For us, when we started, we wanted quality gear that would last a long time. It's hard too, because when you have, sustainability is just kind of near and dear to me. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
decision I made because I thought it would be good for my business. I knew that if I was going to be in the business of putting more out into the world, that I had a responsibility to do it in a way that I could be okay with at the end of the day. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would rather do it than somebody else who doesn't care about that, because someone's going to do it. So if someone's going
Mm-hmm.
to do it and we're going to be putting all this stuff out into the world, how do you do it in a way that you can be really proud of, that is sustainable? I mean,
Yeah.
there's a point in business, and there's a point that we're getting to where some of these things are not going to be possible. It's going to be a lot harder to do. And, the consumer is educated on that, and they're
Yeah.
seeking out brands that they can align with their goals. And so I think for us, the pricing decision was not what approach do we want to take, but our brand ethos led us to a certain price point that then we have to figure out how to make that work, both for
Yeah.
us, for the business, and the consumer.
Yeah, I think there's things out there that people just don't realize, like how much of a difference in price it could be. Like you could get a cheap zipper, and
Yeah.
that zipper might last, but it's probably going to fail,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like, how much does that matter to you, and how much of a difference in cost is that? Like, I know from talking with Callie, the helmet company that I was talking about in the intro, like they have a buckle on one of their helmets that's like a magnetic buckle, and it's like you just kind of slide it to pop it open, and when you put it together, it kind of pops back together, and you're like, man, this thing's awesome. Like, why don't you have this on every helmet? And they're like, well, just that buckle is like $25.
Mm-hmm.
So now the helmet is $300 instead of $275.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's something just so small, where as a consumer, you're like, oh, these pads, they wear out inside of there so quickly. And it's like, yeah, well, if you want the ones that aren't going to wear out so much, they cost us now $75 for
Mm-hmm.
those,
Mm-hmm.
instead of the cheap ones that we could put in there that you're going to have to replace all the time. And I'm sure that you have very similar stories in your line as well, where it's like, yeah, I could use this button that has also a clasp and it would be perfect, but the price point is just not going to make, like, I'm not going to be able to like sell this pants then, or maybe the fabric or something, you know?
I mean, I think it all goes back to you get what you pay for. And
Yeah.
in most cases, I do think that that is really true. And if you've never built a house or a project or anything like that, you are faced with these decisions when you're doing your own project. And so
Yeah.
it's always nice for people to have something like that to relate to. Like if you're building your own thing, whatever that might be, and you have the decision to buy the cheapest thing or that you might have to replace that will cost you more later on, or do you want to buy the nicer thing now that's going to last longer? It's interesting when people are making that decision for themselves and then how they view products that we've had to make that decision for
Yeah.
them, where they fall on that spectrum. And it's all just about education. We're really transparent with why our prices are where they are. If anyone ever reaches out to us, we're
Yeah.
happy to chat through that. And it goes to some, like just the factory workers getting paid a fair wage. And there's so many
Yeah.
elements to it that I think people forget that actually care about. They
Yeah.
care about these things and they personally align with them. But when it comes to actually making that purchase decision, they can
Yeah.
kind of forget the things that are important to them. And so I think it's great
Yeah.
to remind them and be transparent about what goes into costing and pricing.
Yeah, I think when I talked to Callie about, they had a helmet that they brought out that it was very sustainably made, like recycled plastics and all this type of stuff. And the cost of that helmet was so high.
Mm-hmm.
And then people were like, well, this is just too expensive. And it's like, well, do you want it to be like sustainably made, or do you want it to be cheap? Like, what would you like?
It's true. Some of it does feel cost prohibitive too. And so that's where you just hope that the entire industry, recycled fabrics are still more expensive. And we have 93% recycled fabrics. And so that's something that we've just committed to. And over time, you have seen the price of some of that come down because everybody kind of expects it now, like PFA free, forever plastic free fabrics and materials it's expected. It's not something that you expect to pay more for. It's what you expect there to just be. So, sometimes it's a trend, and then the longer that trend is around, then it's just an expectation in the industry, and then it's more readily available because more people are requesting it, and then the pricing can come down. So sometimes it's a long play. But yeah, it would be nice if it weren't so cost prohibitive in the beginning, right?
Do you do gloves as well?
We do.
How long have you been doing that?
For a couple of years now. Yeah,
How do you feel? Do you feel like it was just like a way, like a natural progression to add to like the fit of the whole thing, like to put it all together?
Yeah. I mean, when we were kind of the only ones doing like dinosaurs and skulls and, well, not skulls, that's not a great example, but those prints and patterns that you couldn't find elsewhere.
Right.
Some of our most requested accessories were just those types of things that people could kind of complete their look or complete their kit. Yeah. So it's just accessories wasn't a natural evolution.
Was it hard for you to accept that we need to make some like flat colored options as well? Like, I just need to do a khaki and a black.
Yeah. Yeah, like really. But what sold me on it was one of our best wholesale accounts was selling 50% women's apparel and 50% men's. Like that's unheard of. And she was such a good buyer. And she would say to us, people are asking me for your shorts in black. And I carry like every other black short that's out there. So if they want your black short, don't you want them in your short instead of another short? And I was like, yes, I do. Fine. Yeah. Okay, we'll do a black short. And so it took a while because we were just doing something different and we wanted to stay in our lane and let everybody else do what they'd been doing forever.
Yeah.
And a black bike short was not uncommon by any means. And so it did take some time, but when we knew our customers wanted it, not because they wanted to give up the Shredly, short, but because they would wear their Shredly black short over other black shorts. That's what sold me on it.
Yeah, there's a similar situation I had with Hand Up. For a long time, I was telling them, like, I know you guys just make everything wild and fun, but like, just make some black socks. And because I was like, sometimes I just don't want a loud sock. I just want a black sock to go with. I'm going to wear the loud gloves or the loud shorts instead, or, and I like your socks, so I just want to buy them,
Yeah.
And when they finally did it, I reached out to the marketing guy and I was like, so how are they selling? He's like, it's probably one of our best sellers.
Yes.
He's like,
That Troy.
you were right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's true. You don't want to do it at first, but then you're glad people are picking yours over the other. We have that same thing with our shorts. We have so many prints. So if you're wearing a printed short, a printed top, a printed sock, printed gloves, it's,
Mhm.
look like a 3-year-old dressed you, or you look
Right.
amazing. You can go either way. And so
Right.
we knew that we wanted to be able to dress maturely but funly, or
Yeah.
just go all out wild. And
Yeah.
so we like offering those options.
Yeah, and I think that's the fun part of it is like when you have those options, it's like, I really like that dinosaur pattern on the gloves. And today I'm going to wear the gloves and I'm going to wear it. And that's it,
Yeah.
and everything else is going to be black. So it's like everything else is just that gloves are just going to pop, and
I remember when I first put on, like, because we make a black glove. And when we
Mhm.
first made our black shorts, I put on black gloves, black top, black shorts, and I felt like a ninja. But I was in Shredley, and it was so foreign for me to look down and see that I was wearing black from head
Yeah.
to toe in Shredley. It took a
Yeah.
while for me to get used to that.
Yeah. Yeah. But then it's like, what you said, I think it's that you're in love with that brand and how it fits and how it feels. And so it's like, I just want this as an option,
Mhm.
and it's kind of funny that a brand that is built around giving options that weren't there is like also like, oh, that's not an option we're gonna do.
I know,
know?
right? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. We were probably stubborn about that for maybe a couple years too long.
Yeah, yeah. No, but I mean, it totally makes sense because the same thing that you were saying, where you were like, that's not the lane that we were in, where somebody else can do black socks or
Mhm.
whatever, black shorts. Like that was the same kind of thing that like Hand Up would say to me. They would be like, dude, there's a million other people making black socks,
Mhm.
like we're not going to outsell Nike on black socks. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, but that's not the point.
Yeah. What's your black socks?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then it's just easy then when you're at that site, to like, you're putting it together and it's like, hey, I know that I like these socks, so I can add them on as I'm buying these shorts, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
So one of the other conversations that I have with a lot of brands is, do you are you a company that prices at a point where you know that you're going to be running discounts and coupon codes, or do you just price and not do that? And which way did you decide to go?
Oh, great question. No, our prices are what our prices need to be. And of course, we run promotions and we have sales just like everybody else. But no, we're not that brand that has one price that's almost always crossed out and then has the actual price that you expect to get. No, we have our pricing set where it needs to be.
Hmm. Yeah, some brands, they told me that, they feel like they can't, like, consumers are now like programmed to get some discount code no matter what. And it's like, how, like, I don't want to sell it with a discount code 365 days a year,
Mhm.
but it seems like some of the consumers, like, that's what they're expecting. So if they don't see that, they're like, oh, I'm going to go to this other place and
Mhm.
maybe even spend more but not realize it, but they just
Just
expect
this
that,
facade. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely been a shift in, brand loyalty since COVID, and where people are just price shopping instead of shopping with the brands, that they were accustomed to shopping. And so there's been a lot of chatter in the industry of really trying to get things back to normal where there's some price integrity because that's
Hmm.
what the product is worth. And so,
Right.
it really is going to take the consumer being part of that for things to get back to normal. And I think that the risk that you run as a consumer, if you're unwilling, is that some brands will not survive. And so
Yeah.
if you like love your industry and you want really great product selection, that understanding prices are set because that's the fair price for that product, so that we
Hmm.
don't have to play these games of psychology of marking it up,
Yeah.
so that when you're actually paying the discounted price, we're getting the margin that we need. And so I know with our biggest retailers, we've all been very um, intentional about trying to get back to normal and not always being promotional. And from what I know and what everyone's plan is that we're all trying to get through being over inventoried in certain things and really trying not to be promotional. And the risk again, that everybody runs is that if that's what is expected and that's the only place that people are shopping, um, like I said, some brands are not going to survive, and the leaders in the space, um, like there's a couple big retailers that kind of lead everything, and they're the
Mhm.
ones buying up that inventory, but they don't want their businesses to just be a discount business either. Like everybody is
Yeah.
really trying to, keep their brand and price integrity strong. And so I hope that the brands in the community can kind of all band together, because everybody has to do it for it to work.
Mhm.
Everybody kind of has to get on board that we all want to return to normal, even if there is
Mhm.
no such thing as normal anymore, but really kind of end this constant promotional period that really has hurt the industry and hurt a lot of brands in it.
Mhm.
Even the
How
mom
do
and
you
pop shops, like, it doesn't just affect the brands, then it's
Yeah.
affecting the mom and pop shops, and so I think that it's really something that the consumer has to be willing to be part of.
Is your brand mostly direct to consumer or retail or
We're a mix, but we're definitely heavier on the direct side because we built our brand as a direct business to begin. I mean, we've always had
Mhm.
wholesale, but our margins were such, because our production was in the States, our margins were such that it was definitely supported by direct.
Mhm. Is there any, like, price benefit to people to buy direct from you, or is it the same pricing whenever they would go through, like, a online retailer or a brick and mortar?
Yeah, no, we really support our partnerships with wholesale, and it's the same pricing
Mhm. That's
across.
good. So is what's the long-term goal? Is it to be, keep it the pie sliced up the way it is, or it's like, "We just need to get into REI and then we're good,"
We're
like,
we're actually in REI. That was an
that's
exciting
awesome. Oh,
milestone. Yeah,
congratulations.
yeah. Um, Really just growing in a way that works for our business model. Like
Mhm.
our key thing is offering the product that the consumer needs first. And then, like, we waited quite a long time. We waited about 10 years to open REI because we knew that we weren't ready for them in terms of offering the product, that would work, and also being able to service their account in the way that we needed. So long-term goal is to just grow responsibly, but be
Mhm.
where our consumer is. We want to be in all of the places where they're shopping, and so that mix will probably change over time.
Mhm. That's gotta be harder in a store like REI to how do I say this? Descriptively sell your product when you have the options that you have for the different body types. Like, it's
Mhm.
not like you get a bill like, if you come to your website, I can click on there and see, like, "Oh, this is made for a woman that's shaped this way," or, "This is made for this." And, like, in REI, you have something on a hanger,
Mhm.
and you don't have a billboard, and, like, so how do you message that? I guess just all in your tagging and that's it, or
Yeah, well, you bring up, I think, the biggest challenge. Everybody wants to work with the bigger retailers because there's growth in that, but how are they working for you? And
Right.
that's something that we've always been really careful about. Like, we don't want to just open as many big retailers as fast as we can and try to explode and get out there. It's really important for us that we have partners that are good at what they do, so that it's a benefit for everybody and
Yeah.
that you're mutually, benefiting each other. And we've got such a great relationship with REI. We love our buyers there. And but it's being thoughtful about the assets that you give them, because you do not get the same opportunity to tell your story on
Yeah.
their websites as you do on your own. So
Right.
a lot of it is up to you, to us, to make sure that we're providing really good assets and storytelling, so that on the chance, that someone's landing on your product when there's so many to pick from, that they're getting as good of an experience as they can get, and learning about the brand. So it's
Yeah.
with technology changing, and more video in product pages, stuff like that helps.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, it's just still all about education, but yeah, it's not the same as landing on the Shredly page. So you do as good as you can to work with them to
Yeah.
make sure that they're that they have everything that they need, so that you can help them.
Yeah. When you started, you said, you wanted to make a product for women and by women. And what does that mean to you today?
The same as it did, which is kind of
Mhm.
crazy, because what I didn't know then was how emotional it would really be for so many women. I was like, this is going to be fun and people will be stoked to have nice shorts. But to hear stories from women who, like have been able to put a pair of shorts on for the first time that really fit them, and they're crying, and it's like this incredible experience for them, or they feel like they belong because someone finally made something for them and that they're not, like making it work with men's apparel. It's actually just become more meaningful because I now know what that means to people. And so it's now it's just a matter of figuring out how we, increase our total addressable market and what other products we can offer that people still need. And that's kind of an ever-changing and evolving scenario.
When you were sitting around looking at pillows and thinking that, man, I wish I could wear that pattern, did you think that you would be where you are today?
No, I had no idea. I had no idea what to expect, and I didn't really have that many expectations. I didn't have these wild dreams about how big the company would be. But I didn't have these fears of like, it's not going to work. I kind of was just very much in the moment of, this is cool. I want to do it. I'm just going to do like one thing at a time to figure out how to make it work, and we'll see where it goes. So it's, been nice to have a compass, but be flexible in what that vision is for me. And as I've spent more time doing it, I definitely have more strategic goals, and in looking at what our roadmap looks like, every couple of years, being a little bit more laser focused on what that means. But it really is nice to have started with such purpose that I can always go back to and use that to make decisions about where we're going.
Yeah. When you started, it was just you, and now I'm sure there's more than that. And I think that people are always surprised by like what the size of the team is. Like, how many people is Shredly?
What would your guess be?
Because I have experience with a lot of companies in the bike industry, I would be surprised if it was less, or if it was 10.
Yeah, we're not close to that.
Yeah.
We are 3 full-time people. That includes me. And then we have about 4 really key contractors.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are a nimble, small team. I'm so proud of our team with what we accomplished. Most of the time people are surprised to hear that we're that small, which makes me really proud that we're able to appear as though we're bigger. And, because we are a leader when it comes to so many of the products in the space, I think people assume that we are bigger, but no, we're small, scrappy, but very capable team.
But that's good though. I think when you're in that size, that the ability to be nimble is worth so much more than what you realize until you get to the size that you can't be nimble.
Yes. I agree with that so much.
I go ahead.
You're limited in some ways because, you only have so many resources, and everyone on your team only has so many hours in the day. But you are able to pivot, and you're nimble, and you can make decisions quickly, that could take a lot longer. And it's really cool because everybody has ownership. Everybody feels, they're so close. We're close as a team. We're close with our customers. And so for us, it's like such a communal experience where there's not this big separation between the decisions that are being made at the top and the people that are actually using the product.
What is it that you like the most about what you're doing?
Well, I had this goal of, when I started Shredly, my motivation was that I wanted to do something that would make a difference. And I really do get that satisfaction. We are making a difference in, it's funny to say like we're making a difference in people's lives, but we really are. Like, we're giving them a place to belong, a community to be part of, changing their experience of maybe getting involved with a sport that they wouldn't have. And it's funny that apparel is one of those barriers that, can either invite people in or keep them out. And so I think just really making a difference and creating a space that means something to people really means a lot to me.
Yeah. If you were talking to somebody who was considering like starting an apparel brand, what would you tell them? Where would you tell them to start?
Start a single SKU business.
Don't make different sizes and inseams.
I'm gonna start a business that's like one widget. That's all. That's all you do. I'm honest about, like, I ask them what their idea is. Is anyone else doing it? Does it make a difference? I don't ask all the Shark Tank questions, like if you were to appear on Shark Tank, but I just think it's so important to have a purpose, and your purpose can't be that you just want to own a company or you want to make money, because
Yeah.
it's so hard. It's so challenging. It requires more of you than you have to give. And apparel is not historic. It's not historically like an easy, it's not like tech,
Yeah.
it's just very different. Like, you really have to care about what you're doing, and you really have to have a reason for being, because
Hmm.
there is so much else out there, that you have to have something that sets you apart.
Yeah. What has like dreaming, developing, and bringing to fruition running Shredly done in the last 12 years for you that you didn't expect it to do?
These are the hard questions, Robert.
I'm
Um,
sorry.
no, 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 no. They're such good questions, because I really was so shocked by what I talked about earlier, the emotional side of it. Like, I
Yeah.
really just wasn't prepared for that, and it wasn't my motivation, and I had not tapped into that. And so I think really it's just made me more aware of how important it is for people to have a place. And mountain
Yeah.
biking, for I think mountain biking specifically, different than some other sports, different than maybe golf. There are so many people who've worked through like really hard things in their life, and cycling has been an escape for them or a savior for them. And so
Yeah.
I think it really means something to them. So there's so many aspects to the community where it's like fun and communal and
Yeah.
exercise, or like truly a life-changing saving grace type of experience.
Yeah.
And I think that being part of that and being a tiny piece of what makes it more special, for those people, I did not expect that.
Yeah. I can tell you that I think that I have an exact similar story with my YouTube journey of like making videos and even doing podcasts and stuff, that I zero ever thought about like any kind of emotional like thing that I would bring to people.
Mhm.
And you get messages like, man, I listened to your podcast the whole time I was in the hospital recovering from this car accident, and it was just like fun to listen to, and it made me feel
Aw,
like I was riding again. And you're like, holy shit, like that is not ever like in the like, if I was to write down 100 reasons why I was going to do what I'm doing,
mhm,
like it would have never like been like, oh, this is what I think I'm going to do. And then when you hear that, you're like, man, this is like, it's way more impactful and way more powerful than what I ever fathomed. Like
mhm.
in my mind is like I started doing YouTube because I didn't see any other people making videos that were like me and my friends that went out and like rode trails and then just drank a bunch of beer and like did whatever, like it was like all these fitness guys or these like, and it was like, dude, we weren't doing it for that. We're just like having a good time. And like
Yeah.
afterwards, we're like, now we got an excuse to eat all the calories we burn, and I just wanted to like see people that I would like, my people, and I never thought that. And it's interesting, where to hear it from you as well. And it's like
Mhm.
the same situation where I think we just like don't come into that thinking that you're going to impact people that way.
No, and I think that that's what makes us authentic, because if that was your motivation, I don't think it would be the same.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some amazing nonprofits or organizations out there
Yeah.
that go in with certain motivations, but I do
Yeah.
think that it's special when you go in not for that reason, and that's what you come out with.
Yeah. So do you do like some kind of like charity kind of work, or have any kind of thing like that that's supporting the women's mountain biking community, or what do you do in that aspect?
Yeah, so we're super involved in a lot of different things kind of behind the scenes.
Hmm.
It's, kind of hard to keep up with, and we obviously get hit up to support more than we would like, or more than we can support.
Afford. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. But we do a really fun collab, and usually we used to do one every year where we'll find a nonprofit and we'll do a custom print with them, and then we donate proceeds from that print to that organization. So we've done that with She Jumps, with IMBA, and a couple different organizations. So that's a really fun way to partner with people. But on the grassroots level, like we are just involved in so many different things from youth programs to women's programs. And so we really are between our group, our team, and from a
Mm-hmm.
business perspective, but then our ambassadors, like we've got some incredible ambassadors that are an extension of us and the things that they're involved in and what
Mm-hmm.
they're doing to welcome more people into the sport or, get communities that are underserved that don't have access to the resources, that we all have in terms of riding and
Mm-hmm.
gear. So there's so many different things and there's so many cool programs.
Mm-hmm.
Going on. World Ride is another one of our partners, where they have programs around the world where they train women to be coaches or guides.
Mm-hmm.
And we did a really great trip where we went down to Guatemala to meet some of their program volunteers down there, and that was pretty incredible.
That's awesome. What was I going to ask you? I don't even remember now. where where do you want to see it go, like from here? What's the future?
Well, we have some pretty strategic goals in terms of what we need and want as a business and as a team. So we're working towards those, but really just continuing to stay true to who we are and our roots and offering more of that to the wider market. And inside and outside of bike, as I mentioned in the beginning, I've really always designed the products to be multi-use, and we know our customers use them for multiple things, or we have customers that don't even ride. And so really making an effort to kind of sprinkle our magic outside of the bike world, is something that we're excited about doing more of.
When you go and you look at like other, now that there's other women's focused brands that are becoming more and more popular, I'm sure you're like, oh, that's a good idea, or there's things that you probably rest your head on that you're proud of that you do at Shredly. What is it that you think makes Shredly stand out for a women's apparel brand compared to some of the other offerings that are out there?
Well, I think our product direction, seeing that what we do ends up being reflected in a lot of other things means that we're doing something right and thinking
Mm-hmm.
outside the box and still bringing new approaches to fit or function
Mm-hmm.
or style. So I'm really proud of just our product offering. To hear how many women say that it's their favorite pair of shorts. They've never had a pair of shorts that fits them that well. They've had them for 8 years and still love them, or they have 24 pairs because they can't love
Yeah.
them enough. So I'm really, really proud of our product. And then just the authenticity of the brand and welcoming people in and trying to be welcoming to all, and
Mm-hmm.
making people feel like you are welcome and you're part of, the brand and this space regardless.
Mm-hmm.
That is also really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, I know my wife definitely like said those same things about your shorts whenever she first tried them. I remember coming back from that original Sedona and telling her like, "Hey, I saw this brand. You should really check them out." And I remember her getting them and just being like, "Wow, I'm just really impressed with the way that they fit." And like she just loved the ability to be able to have some options to like
Yeah.
not just have black shorts.
Great. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, yeah. What what do you love most about what you've done? Like what makes you most stoked?
Well, those two things, just knowing that like there's people out there that I don't know and we make their favorite shorts. Like that's so cool. I have to stop and think sometimes. People ask me like, do you get excited when you see Shredly, out in the wild on someone you don't know? And
Yeah,
and I do, and I have to stop and think like that product exists because I just went with my idea. Like that's
yeah,
pretty cool that and we're still here. I mean, for a small business to be in business for 12 years in all of the tumultuous times that the bike industry and the world has gone through, I'm really proud of that because it's just based on pure grit,
hmm,
that we are still here in ingenuity and, not being afraid to try something different. And so I'm really proud of Shredly still being here and offering
yeah,
really great product that wins product reviews and kind of people's hearts. And that's
yeah.
really
Yeah,
don't
it's
take
got
that
to be a
for
trip for you to, I mean, you know how many orders that you've put in and you know how many shorts that you've sold in the last 12 years. Like to think about something that you just dreamt up is
granted.
like in all those places. It's got to be really fulfilling.
It is. it's it's interesting though, because I just don't feel like we're done. I
Yeah.
think that sometimes that you might expect that that would feel like, yes, we did it. But now it's like, okay, what's next? What's
Yeah.
next? Like we were talking about schedules and stuff earlier. There's never really a break where you feel like you've reached that goal,
Hmm.
because there's another season to design for. There's another season coming. And so it's like really still you're always continually moving forward and towards the future.
Hmm.
Um, and so it doesn't ever feel like you're done. There you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you base like what your next season's going to look like as far as like the designs and stuff that you pick? It's like, I mean, it sounds silly to say, like, it's not like you're going to go like, oh, this is what they're doing on the runway in Paris, I'm going to use that print, or like,
That's
what
not,
is
yeah.
it, you know?
I'm my heart. I wanted to be a high-end couture designer and design evening wear. Like that was the type of design that I was
Uh-huh.
very excited about. And that's the direction I was wanting to go. So
Hmm.
when I started outdoor, it was a surprise to me because I just didn't ever have the interest in it. But I know that I'm doing what I was meant to do because um there's just so many things that have fallen into place that, just make sense. And
Yeah,
so I forget what the question was now.
me too. Oh, how do you come up with the designs? Like,
Oh,
how do you know like
okay.
what direction to go,
Yeah. So sometimes I am inspired by, I'm not a fan of following color trends and stay and thinking we have to stay within this palette and this is
Yeah.
what's in. So we have to do this. I'm a big fan of setting trends. I'm
Hmm.
a big fan of thinking outside the box and not doing what everyone else is doing. That's why we exist. We're not here to copy what everyone else has been doing forever. People want something different.
Hmm.
And so I'm a big fan of bringing new things in. So when it's time to design a new line, we really rely on customer feedback. What do they want
Hmm.
from us? What feels like it's still missing from the market? How do we differentiate our offering and still, kind of stay ahead of the curve? And so there's a lot of different factors that go into it. And then the fun part is, coming up with your color palette, coming up with your design direction in terms of prints.
Yeah.
Uh, so there's a lot that goes into it.
I think there's a lot of room to like make sports attire that looks more casual, but is still like functional. You know what I mean? And I think
Mhm.
that's what you're doing. And I think that like Tasco has the it looks like a cotton t-shirt, but it's still wicking. It's like a performance t-shirt,
Mhm.
and it has a design on it or something like that. And it's like things like that in like the men's space is what I'm thinking about, but also like in the woman's space, like there's lots of different style tops that you could wear that would still, they don't have to be a t-shirt. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I think that giving those options is like, to me, I think that's exciting.
Yeah, and I also think it just makes sense from a use case perspective. Unless there's a reason why it needs to look or function a certain way, there's no reason why we
Yeah.
view it, no reason why we shouldn't make it so that it can be used for
Yeah.
multiple different things.
Like your shirt doesn't have to be designed in the same palette or design standards as like a soccer jersey. You know what I mean? And it's like sometimes like you go and you look at the cycling stuff and you're like, really? Like, come
Yeah.
on. Like, I want to wear this shirt and then go and have a beer and like
Mhm.
lunch afterwards and not feel like I'm like, falling out of some like fitness magazine or something. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
feel like there's some great brands that have taken that approach specifically.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what they base
Hmm.
their aesthetic around.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you like, what is the warranty type of situation with people like purchasing your products? I know that's a tough thing with mountain biking because it's like sometimes things fail and then sometimes people wreck and they say they failed, but they just
Mhm.
they crashed.
Well,
Like,
and that's hard too because, I think, like, we would all love it if our car would never dent, but that's
right.
impossible, and so if our car dents, do we expect that it should be replaced? There's just, we take care of our customers, we stand behind our product. We do have a standard warranty policy that normal wear and tear is not covered, but we also try to keep things out of the landfill. So, like, if you crashed on a rock and your shorts ripped, like, we know that that's such a bummer. And so we'll send out patches. Sometimes at events, if people come to us, we'll patch for them. So we
Oh,
try to
cool.
make it so that then you just get like this really rad, cool, unique pair of shorts that no one else has. And so we try to be really creative about what we can do to make the customer feel like they've been taken care of, and keep, products going and
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you sitting down and talking with me. It's been a
Yeah.
long time that I've really wanted to have you on the show because I've just been very intrigued by your brand and what you were doing, and I think that it's really awesome. So I'm stoked for you to have been here for 12 years at this point, and um, to be where you are. That's awesome. I'm super stoked to see where you go from here.
Oh, thank you so much. And thanks for doing what you do and giving,
Yeah,
people like me a platform to talk about our businesses. And it's
yeah,
what makes this space so cool.
yeah.
Mhm.
Do you watch YouTube at all?
I do.
I always like to ask people what YouTube channels they like to watch, regardless of if it has to do with cycling.
Oh my gosh. You know what I probably watch the most
What's
is
that?
cooking.
Oh yeah.
That's really funny. But I love watching people make recipes, like
Hmm.
talking through what they're doing. And probably it's because I don't have a ton of time to actually cook, but I love to cook.
Uh-huh.
And so it's one of those things that I get a lot
Who
of.
are some of your favorite creators?
Oh my God. No, I don't, I'm not that
Yeah.
loyal to, no, it's mostly
So
just like
whatever the algorithm serves you, you're good.
kind of, but more so it's what I'm searching for. Like,
Oh,
I
okay.
want to know like something creative to do with grapefruits, or I
Uh-huh.
have nephews and it's my favorite. Like, have you ever seen toaster quesadillas?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. So you like put the cheese in it and then you fold it like an
Yeah.
envelope and you put it in the toaster so that
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a pre-made little thing. Little things like that are my favorite. And
Yeah,
animals.
yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, my wife loves to cook and she always watches, a lot of cooking shows. And
Mhm.
I always ask her like, "Why don't you watch it on YouTube?" And she just doesn't for whatever reason. So I was
She
always
likes her.
yeah, yeah. She cracks me up though. It's like we could literally be eating dinner and she's like watching it and I'm like, "I don't understand." Like
Oh, that's
she's
funny.
just
Yeah,
like
just
watching food and eating something else and she's like, "I just want to watch more of it."
just
And I'm like,
it's kind of
"Yeah.
uh like drama-free entertainment, even though like some of the cooking shows that are all these competitions have tons of
Yeah.
drama, but it's
Yeah.
like a safe space where you can just enjoy it. You don't have to think about a ton of other different things.
Yeah.
It looks delicious.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's fun.
I get
He
the
always liked doing stuff when the kids were younger too to just like trick them into eating things. So like how you were
Mhm.
talking about the quesadilla or whatever, it'd be like, even if it was something as simple as like making the mashed potatoes blue and then be like, oh, they're
That's funny.
blue. And then
Oh,
they're
that's
like, oh yeah,
funny.
we love them.
Yeah,
Like,
that's funny. I have to remember that. I'm hosting my nephews at ant camp for a week next week, and so I'm like pulling out all the stops. So I'll have
oh,
to
there you go.
remember that one.
Right on. Well, I appreciate you, like I said earlier, hanging out with us for the last 2 hours and everything that you're doing. Those of you guys that aren't familiar with Shredly, go definitely check them out. It's shredly.com. Is it?
Yep. Mhm.
Okay. I have the link in the show more of the podcast. If you're listening on a podcast app or if you're on YouTube, the link's down there. You can click as well. I just for whatever reason could not remember the domain. So I
No
just
worries.
took a leap of faith and
Yep.
figured it was
Good
Shredly.
guess.
Yeah. Anyways, all of you out there, I appreciate all of you for tuning in as well. And if you want to remember one thing out of this entire 2-hour show, just remember it only takes a bike to be a biker. Get out and be one.
That's great.